Hello, and thanks for spending some time with me today. In this episode, I am going to just show you how much junk I have laying around, basically, that I didn't realize I had, particularly to do with Eagle Talons. This is the first generation. So, um, basically, in the one car that I'm doing, it's a revival that I've been working on in the past. You can go check that out. But the fellow wants actually to have a vintage or a stock stereo in it, which is kind of cool because we really want to make it all stock. So I started digging through all my stuff, and I realized that I have, except for a few things that he got, I have probably every version of stereo that came in the first generation of Eagle Talons of stereos. So I thought I'd just show you that since I have it, and we're going to see if we can actually bench test some of this stuff as well, and which ones are rare. So let me take you through basically what these are. And this again is from the 90 to 94 versions. Now 90 to 91s had some different options I'll show you about. But essentially these are them right here. So the basic one that was the most popular, which is what I got in my 1991 over there when I bought it new, was this guy, which is basically a two separate DIN units. There's a tape player and a radio that work together. Built-in amplifier, 4-speaker system. There was no door speakers with this, and it has this little faceplate that has this bar here because it's separate. If you wanted to get a step up from that, you got this double DIN unit, which is all one unit. Has a different little faceplate. There's no bar there, and it has an equalizer, which again, that was great, but it didn't add any amplifying power compared to this one. So basically, if you put up your bass, you got a lot of distortion. So anyway, what was neat about this one is it had well, let me just take you in here. Okay, there's a little closer up. So yeah, I took you through that one. This one, what I want to take you close up is this was, I'm going to call it ahead of time, be honest, because it had an auxiliary input. They called it for CD. Back in the day, I had a Sony Carman that actually had an adapter for the cassette that plugged in, and then I'd plug it into my little Sony Carman that I had a little plate for, and that's what I did for a CD player back then. But this had an auxiliary input directly in. You could plug in anything. But what is nice about this, if you have this and you want that stock stereo from 1991 or 90 or whatever it is, you can plug in a Bluetooth connection if you want, or a receiver, and you can directly plug in your MP3 player, obviously, or your phone nowadays. So this was pretty handy, and it's pretty handy if you want this vintage look. So a lot of people want this. I have used this for sure for that exact same thing. And then we get into the granddaddy. So these two only had onboard amplifier, 4-speaker system. I think this could have came in a 6-speaker door speakers as well, but I can't recall for sure. This guy was the granddaddy, which had the tape player, obviously, just like that one did. And it had the CD player, which notice this one doesn't, but it has a tape player and it adds the equalizer. But this had the CD player. This is very rare, honestly. 99, and this is the 91 version of the CD player, by the way. Extremely rare. This was hardly bought in any vehicles out there, and it had an amplifier as well, which is here as well. I don't know if this works, so we're going to try and bench test to see if we can get this actually working. This had no auxiliary input, but it had a CD player. So this is a pretty rare guy once you get going. So if you went into a 92 to 94 and had this version, it had a little different CD player, which is this guy. Notice the difference. For some reason, they went to this guy in the 92, 94. I think this top part was the same, but this was different. If you're looking for these, you need some special... if we look back here, you'll just bring it up here. You need some DIN cables. There's an extra cable here that plugs in as well. Right here is where your wiring comes in from your car. And the one in that other car is all chewed up. So I managed to actually get one of these, which is a reverse wiring harness, which I can plug into there with this, and then I'm going to redo the wiring into the harness. But this is going to work really good for bench testing this. And as I mentioned, there was different speaker versions as well. Okay, enough of that. So this was the back of it had, actually there's some pictures there as well if I have some stuff. So basically these guys in the dash speakers, which were considered a full range speakers, was this guy here that goes in there. This is the door speaker if you are fortunate enough to ever have them, and that goes in there, which again was not for this one. I don't think it was available for this one. Definitely for this one with the amplifier. Can't remember for sure in that one. Maybe some of you in the comments can put that in if that actually had door speakers as an option, but I think you needed the amplifier, which only came with this version. It only had the inputs on this guy for that to go in. So what's also interesting too is the rear speakers on these was either 6x9 or 6-inch speakers, which is really strange. Depending on the car, I don't think there was any rhyme or reason to it. It just depended on the car if you had 6x9s or 6-inch mounts basically that came. So I don't have any examples of that offhand, but you can certainly look that up if you're interested. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up my basically my voltage supply here. Incidentally, I built this in college in 1988 or 89, I can't remember, but I built this little power supply and it still works. It's basically I think it goes up to 25 volts and 4 amps. And works really well. So I actually built the whole thing. And when I mean built this whole thing, I built even the circuit boards, etched them all, designed the circuits as well, and put it all together, bought all the components. So yeah, designed and built by me. So we're going to put that on, connect it up, connect some speakers, see if we can get this to rock out. Look what I found. So for those of you that are, we'll call it younger than me anyway, you might not know what this is. But as I mentioned earlier, back in the day, if we didn't have an auxiliary input in the front or the back, and we only had a tape deck, which was most cases, we bought an adapter. Notice this says, hopefully you can read that, for Discman. I got that somewhere in here, that vintage Discman, but I had a Sony Discman. Again, I made a little bracket for it, basically, mount that was kind of in between the console and the passenger seat. Had it sitting there, nice little flip up. Didn't skip too much as long as I didn't do too many bumps. And that was my disc player back in the day. And it was pretty cool. People are pretty impressed with that back then. Kind of weird now, but anyway. This basically, that goes on the head of the cassette player, and you just put it in and hit play, and then you plug this into your whatever it was, your Discman in this case. Later on we had MP3 players, which was pretty cool, and eventually we got phones, and then we got Bluetooth receivers as well that plugged into stuff like this if you wanted to, but by then we had everything upgraded and we're doing different things. Some people would go right into the electronics and solder wires and stuff too, but this was the poor man's adapter, we'll call it, for CD players, moving your CD player around, and you could go anywhere. Anybody who had a cassette player, which was most cars back then, including aftermarket, this is what you used. Pretty cool, I think, back then, and I still like having it, and who knows, if you ever want to have your vintage stock player in the car, just because you want and it looks cool, you can still do this, play your phone stuff, your Bluetooth as well. Let's start wiring this up and see if we can get some noise out of it, or at least if it turns on. Maybe we'll start with that. Start by opening this guy up. So I've got it kind of set up. Basically I took the ground and I grounded it on this chassis, which through the wires in the back grounds the rest off. And then I took the positive and I put it into the accessory as well as the battery leads. So that's power. And I'm only going to set up one speaker, so I've got, I think, a right rear, I believe it is, left or something like that. Anyway, that one works, well, I'm pretty sure. So let's turn it on and see how well it does. Okay, we have a clock. We have something on there. It doesn't light everything up until you need to use it. I do know that. So the first thing we'll try and figure out is turn it on, which is the power button here. And we got AM. Let's see if we got any static here by cranking it up. And we do. You hear the static. That's awesome. Notice that there's no increase on the display, whether the volume's going up or not, because this is old school vintage stuff. There wasn't a lot of feedback on what you did, other than basically hearing, in this case, on volume. So, let's try FM. Yeah, that's working. Let's see if we can catch anything by seeking here. Let's see here if I... Oh, there we go. Whoop. Okay, we got FM working. All right. Now, let's try cassette. Put a cassette in. I don't know what we got. I think I got some preschool thing for my wife here. Oh. That's working? Okay. Let's see if it ejects. Yeah, okay. And we're going to put a CD in. Hopefully I don't get too much copyright on this. Oh, that's noisy. Hey, it lit up. That's good news. CD's working. Okay. We've got CD action. It's actually working really good. Okay, I'm going to crank that down. Let's eject. Holy smokes, is that ever noisy? It's working though. Okay, we got CD action. We are in good shape here. So, yeah, it's working. EQ, I imagine, is working as well. So, we've got a vintage CD player working, which was the goal of today. I think we're going to put this in that car. I'm going to clean this up. Definitely maybe even color some of the stuff in. But, yeah. Well, we got a vintage player ready to go for a stock car that we're going to put together. So this is really good. Like I said, this is a pretty rare one, having the amplifier. Can't wait to put it in, and that'll be part of that whole rebuild and restoration of that car. Thought we'd have some fun getting a vintage, basically car stereo going for an Eagle Talon and getting it ready for that restoration of that car we're doing. So yeah, this is going to go in. So hope you enjoyed having a little fun today on that. And if you did, and of course there's lots more to come, don't forget to subscribe. Make a comment as well. Curious what you think about all these sorts of things. And obviously maybe do the like button as well. Until then, enjoy every day and always make it right.